Was seventh grade hard in the beginning of the year, and did it become easier?
Um, Seventh grade, I think it got harder as the year progressed because we started, at first we were working with rational numbers and that, and then we started moving to the circumference of circles and the area of circles. And I think overall it's gotten harder. You just like keep paying attention to the topic, it's easier, I guess.
And the last question is, what advice can you give on how students can be organized with each of their classes?
Well, turn in your homework and make sure you finish your classwork in class so you don't have extra work at home.
This is Shelby Earnhardt. She's a seventh grader, and we would like to ask you a few questions. What are some tips you can give on how you're surviving the seventh grade?
I am just working hard every day and getting my homework done.
Okay, so the next question is, what has seventh grade been hard at the beginning, and then did it become easier?
It was not hard at the beginning, but it was very hard to, it was hard to like track, it was hard to get my groove, I guess.
The last question is, how would you recommend upcoming seventh graders to be organized for each class?
I would say study and always have a schedule on you because that's important, and just study really hard and listen in class.
This is Emily Henson, and she is currently an eighth grader, and we would like to ask you a few questions. What tips can you give to the eighth graders next year on how they can survive fifth grade?
Don't procrastinate, do your work, and turn it in on time.
The next question is, what has eighth grade been hard in the beginning of the year, and was it easier?
It actually was the opposite for me. It was easy at first and it got harder.
Okay. The last question is, what advice can you give on how students can be organized with each of their classes?
Just if you have homework for like first hour or something, like if you procrastinate, do your first hours first and then use team time to like do your homework for the later hours.
Great, and I have a few questions to ask you. What tips can you give to the eighth graders next year on how they can survive the eighth grade?
Tips I would give is to stay on track, keep your grades up, and be calm.
The next question is, was eighth grade hard in the beginning of the year, and did it become slightly easier?
It was kind of hard in the beginning, but it got easier and easier.
Okay, and the last question is, what advice can you give on how students can be organized with each of their classes?
Being organized, I would consider like doing, if you're going to do homework and you're kind of a procrastinator, to do first the most important homework and then go into like ones that you have like later hour, like 8 until, yeah.
This is Maddox Solomon. He's currently in ninth grade, and I would like to ask you a few questions. What tips can you give to the ninth graders next year on how they can survive the ninth grade?
Well, you need to be organized and you need to be on task, and when it just says turn in homework on that specific day, you need to turn it in.
The next question is, was ninth grade hard in the beginning of the year, and did it become easier, or was it easier in the beginning of the year and did it become hard?
For me, it was hard at the beginning of the year because we were just now learning new stuff and getting in and getting settled in, but then through the year it's gotten easier.
Okay. The last question is, what advice can you give on how students can be organized with each of their classes?
Well, you need to have a binder or folder for each class. And say if it's an 8A, you need to have all your classes with binders and folders in your bag. And you always need to come prepared to class.
This is Noah Farmer. He is currently a ninth grade student. I would like to ask you a few questions. What are some tips you can give on how to survive the ninth grade?
I would say go with the flow of things. I think a lot of 8th graders coming into the 9th grade feel like it's going to be like a totally different year, and it's really not. It's just school. You got to be comfortable with your teachers and your classmates and trust one another. And other than that, it's just another school year. So.
Was ninth grade hard at the beginning of the year?
At the beginning of the year, the teachers helped us a bit. They tried to slide into all of the extra work that we'd be getting. Last year you didn't get much, and this year it was kind of like you just got a whole bunch of stuff thrown on you at once. So I think it's kind of hard getting into it. Yeah.
Did it become easier?
Yeah. Once you get settled in with all the work that you have to do, it's more of a easy job. You're just not used to it in 8th grade.
What can you recommend to students that are going to be ninth graders next year on how they can be organized with their classes?
I'd say like have a folder for each class. I know during this year, at the beginning, I had one big binder and it had everything in it, and things would constantly fall out, and I couldn't find anything. So I would say like have one folder for one class, have a rest of the folders for the others.
This is Miss Higgins. She is an 8th grade English teacher. I have a few questions I would like to ask you. What tips can you give students to pass their grade?
For students coming from 7th into 8th grade, I think that, peer pressure becomes more of a problem when you get here, and being on your phone and conversing through social media during class. And I just think, staying strong and using that 45 minutes for what you need to use it for, and trying to save your home time for your social is probably one of the things that I see students needing to do more. So just staying focused for the time that you're in class, and then using your home time for social media and social interaction is probably going to help you be successful.
Okay, next question. What can students do to maintain a 3.5 or 4.0 GPA?
I could say do your work, but that's very obvious. What I would say to maintain a 3.5 to a 4.0, those students are the ones who are communicating with their teachers. Okay? Email your teachers if you need to. Talk with your teachers. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Use your team time, which will be advisory time next year. Use that time wisely. Once again, don't prioritize your social over your academics. And then, once again, communicating with your teachers. We're here to help you.
Okay. And the last question is, do you recommend students to be organized with their materials?
Absolutely. So I think that not only organize with your materials, keeping folders for classes that you have papers in, making sure that you have a binder, and learn how to use Google Classroom. If you learn how to use that Google Classroom and integrate a Google Calendar with that, and you're using a Google Calendar and you're writing things down if you need to, then that's going to help you be more organized and stay focused throughout the day. So organizing your materials, both online and paper materials, is going to be very important to you.
Okay, thank you.
Go.
This is Mr. JKT. He's a 9th grade teacher, history teacher. I would like to ask you a few questions. What are some tips you can give on students on how to pass their grade?
How to pass a specific grade, like 9th grade, any grade. Come to class and do your homework. Turn all your homework in. Those two things are very critical. If you miss a lot of class, you miss things that might show up on the test. But come to school, do your homework. That will get you through most of your classes.
Next question. What can students do to maintain a 3.5 through 4.0 GPA?
Okay, this is going to take more effort to keep the high GPA. You're going to have to go above and beyond the classroom and study at home. You're going to have to do the review sheets that your teachers ask you to do and study those review sheets for your test. Most of you will have time in class to do a lot of your homework, but studying for test is something you generally have to do at home. So be prepared to study at home.
And the last question is, do you recommend students to be organized with their materials?
Organized students are always better students. So yes, I would recommend that they keep a folder. They can keep a folder that separates all their classes, or they can get a folder for every class. That just depends on the student. But write down your assignments when they're due, and keep a nice, decent folder. It definitely helps.